return to the SHORAD, back to the maneuver force, and that is the rotational 88 battery from one of the 7 SHORAD battalions in the Guard. So we currently have Bravo Battery, 1st of the 204th, and the Mississippi Army National Guard. And they basically are co-located with the Rotational Armored Brigade Combat Team, which is currently 2nd Brigade 3ID. And as you heard earlier, in some of the questions that Lieutenant General Carver received in reference to, how are we, building that culture? Well, this is what we're doing really on a daily basis, and we're also doing it not only in joint exercises, but in combined exercises. And I'll talk a little bit more on that later as well. If we could transition to the next slide. So we've heard a lot about the AIAMD, the Army's Integrated Missile Defense Concept. And I got to tell you, no one does that better than Colonel Tony Behrens. And I want to thank you, Tony, for what you have done as we have really built this strategic narrative for the force. Tony spent some time with us last year with our team. And when you look at integrating sensors, shooters, mission command for all the AMD forces, whether it's from strategic and theater, all the way to the forward edge of a counter anti-axis area denial battlefield in a multi-domain operating environment. This is an example of what we're doing now. We don't have the actual future material systems. You talk the IBCS, but we're continuing to build towards this AIMD concept. And so when you look at this slide, it's pretty impressive of what you're seeing there. So, and you look in the back row, this is 10 different countries' air and missile defense systems. So when we go talk about the principles of air and missile defense, mass, mix, mobility, integration, we've got all of those simultaneously happening in this photo. But what's even more impressive is that we're taking 10 different countries, people who are speaking 10 different languages, working in a surface-based air defense operations center. They have different interceptors, different mission command elements, but they're establishing one common tactical air picture and operating on one tactical standard operating procedures in accordance with NATO procedures. And that's pretty impressive. And what that does at the end of the day is that shows the commitment of air missile defense to the alliance, but more so serves as a deterrence to our adversaries. And we always say, you cannot do this alone. You definitely can't. When you look at these different systems out there, I mean, you have a French SAM-PT, we have the French Mistral, we also have the RBS-70s, we have a Patriot system, we have the U.S. Avenger. So this builds a multi-layered air defense approach, but once again, though, mitigates those A2AD obstacles that we're so concerned about in turning the tables on our adversaries. But what's really important about this, when I talk interoperability, I'm talking 3 different areas. First thing is an exercise like this, but also what we do outside of the exercises, build from the human aspect, the relationships, and team relationships matters. And what's even more important is that when you have countries that have similar values, most of us belong there to the alliance, similar values leads to relationships. When you increase the frequency in events like this, it builds strong relationships. And when you have strong relationships, it builds trust. And trust matters in this environment. But what's also even more important is the technical aspects of being able to establish all different systems from different nations and getting them operating and passing data so we can build that common tactical air picture. Not an easy feat. And beyond the technical aspects of that, there's a lot of work that goes into the rehearsals before you go into these. And what I'm talking about this is normally what you encounter, and you hear it in a lot of different forums, is foreign disclosure obstacles. And I got to tell you, we have really made some great work on this, making sure that we don't, obviously, we protect the network. And we don't want to, compromise any information. And it is truly a team effort at all echelons, even our ASCC, U.S. Army Europe. We work to UCOM. But I got to tell you, the big winners out there, and I have a shout out, and you just actually saw Major General Gainey. His team has been a critical enabler to get us to be able to put together these networks. And that's Mr. Bob Mendiola and his team. And I got to tell you, when you bring in, more than one nation, and here we are with 10, those foreign disclosure issues become pretty complex. And so working with them, and not only them, but also the PEO, Missiles and Space Team, we're able to bridge that technical piece, get these links established. And what that finally does in these events gets us to the third aspect, which a lot of times in my experience, we sometimes don't get to because we've